Today I'm going to talk about how I replaced my Superblast 2, my daily trainer. It's new shoe time. There we go. Here's me enjoying my Superblast 2s. They've got a huge amount of running in them. I've had two pairs doing over 1,000 kilometers in each pair. But as they're getting a bit older, now it's time to look at doing something different, get out of my comfort zone, maybe look to get something new, just change things up a little bit. I like to use my Superblast for a whole range of running. So I'll use it for anything from long runs, easy runs, some slightly up-tempo stuff. I have other shoes that I use for track sessions and proper speed work days, so I don't really need anything for that. But at the same time, it might be nice to have something that I can use whenever I want. So if I go on holiday and I want to do something and I want to do the odd upbeat session, I can do that in my daily trainer. So I had that in mind, but at the same time, the main thing I wanted was something really comfortable that I could get a lot of mileage in and that I'd enjoy using at the same time. What's really important for me for a daily trainer is that it's comfortable. But at the same time, it needs to be something that you really want to wear and you want to go out in because you're going to do the majority of your runs in it. Now, at the moment, I'm doing around 70 to 80k a week. Some I'm doing a bit more speed work and I'm taking a little bit easier. But when it comes to marathon time, I can get up to 120, 130 kilometers a week. I'll use my daily trainer for about 4 or 5 days or 4 or 5 runs a week. And it'll probably end up being around at least 50k a week, up to at times maybe even 100. So it is really important that it's something that's comfortable, but that I really want to go out in. And so it kind of enthuses me to go out. So I just gives me that extra push out the door. I've tried many different shoes over the years, and I settled on the Superblast 2 for a few big reasons. Although it's really expensive, so about around the £200 mark, it's worthwhile if I can get the mileage that I'm getting out of them. You know, I could buy a pair for 100 and only get 200-300 miles or 200-300 kilometers out of it. So obviously that doesn't really work, does it? What's also really important for me is that it's able to pick up a bit of speed when I need to. So especially in some of my long runs, whilst when I'm marathon training, I won't necessarily use it for my specific marathon pace sessions. What I will use it for is to just speed up maybe towards the end of my runs. It needs to feel good going at a slightly higher tempo. I've used many different daily trainers over the years. But the Superblast I found absolutely brilliant because they're just a bit firmer. You don't really sink into them. Although they've got a huge stack and it is a lot of shoe, it doesn't feel that big. And it also enables you to speed up a little bit. You know, not massively so. You still tell you've got a daily trainer on, but you could theoretically do all of your training in it. Now, I've looked at a few contenders. What I really wanted to do was to see whether I could find something that's a little bit cheaper that I could still get a similar use out of. Now, I went online, I went on a couple of forums and asked some questions of people and got people to suggest shoes that I might want to use. Now, I was swayed against the Superblast 3, one because of the price point, because again, it's the same. I think it might even be a little bit more expensive, and also because apparently it's a little bit softer. And I knew I didn't want softer because again, I found things like the Pro Evo SL or not the Pro Evo SL, the Evo SL. I found that a little bit too soft. Whilst brilliant for shorter stuff, I found that especially with the way I run, I just sink into it too much and I don't get a great experience. Just seem to sap my energy away a little bit if I'm not running in exactly the right form. So I didn't like that. So I knew that I wanted something that was relatively firm. In that, I managed to pick two that I thought would probably work for me that were around the £100 mark. So the two I ended up choosing were the Saucony Endorphin Azura and the Puma Velocity Nitro 4. Now those are two shoes quite different, but have been said to do a similar thing. So they should be able to do a bit of everything. So be a daily trainer and also be able to pick up the pace a bit as well. Now, as I've said, I've heard that on a few different shoes. We will see whether that's true or not. So first of all, we've got the ASICS. So the left one at 269, the right one 267, so nice and close. The Puma, the left one 239, 240, and the right one 238. Then the Saucony, got the left one at 254 and the right one at 259. So the ASICS are the heaviest, then with the Saucony in second, and the Puma in third. So the Puma are the lightest, and you really can feel that on the foot. They do feel a lot more nimble, and you can feel the floor a little bit more through them. Now, if you look at them from the side there, you'll also see how long the ASICS are. There is a lot of shoe there with the Saucony then, and the Puma relatively similar in that respect. Then if we go on to look at the base of them, you can see there's a much larger amount of foam and amount of space on the ASICS, with the Saucony again relatively similar but smaller, and then again the more nimble with the Puma. All of the grip coverage is great. Yeah, now from top on, you can see the Saucony and the Puma relatively similar, and then the ASICS just looks bigger, and it does feel bigger on foot. It still feels relatively nimble when you're running in it, but you can tell a huge difference with the other two. So I was really impressed with how much I could get the turnover with the other two shoes. So there we go. We've had a little look at what they look like and the kind of general specifications of them. But ultimately, what do they feel like when I'm running in them? Now, the first ones I bought were the Pumas, and I've done about just about 120k or so in those. I have to say, when I first put them on, I thought, oh my God, what have I done? Because I found it really hard to get a decent cinch down on the laces. I normally use a runner's knot and really struggled to get them tied up and feeling good. I had a lot of pressure over the top of my foot. Once I just took the runner's knot off and just did a double bow on them, and they felt a lot better. I could noticeably feel the ground through them, which I don't get off obviously the amount of stack and the amount of foam on the Superblast, but they do feel really responsive. And I found that when I was running at easy pace, I was very, very underwhelmed. I thought, no, these aren't one. What have I done here? But then, as soon as I started picked up the pace a little bit, without too much effort, all of a sudden I got onto the balls of my feet, and I felt really good. And they are a really good shoe for when you pick up the pace. Now, unfortunately, that's not really what I want them for. But what it has really made me find out is that they are a shoe that I can use, that are non-carbon plated, that I can use for my tempo sessions, so that I can save my legs a little bit. I have done a couple of longer runs in them. I did a 20k run in them the other morning, felt absolutely fine, but I did find that I picked up the pace a little bit just to get a little bit more out of them. So if I want to do a long, easy run, I really wouldn't reach for these, but at the same time, they are definitely a shoe that I'm going to be using going forward. Now, in terms of the Saucony, as soon as I put them on, I thought, right, these do feel very, very similar. They're very similar to the ASICS, but a little bit more, they've got a little bit more pop to them. So they've got the speed roll technology in them, which I do quite like. They kind of roll you onto the front foot, but without being too aggressive. So it's kind of like you can choose how aggressive you want to be. So running at easy pace, you can run at easy pace, and you don't feel like you're kind of holding yourself back in any way, and they don't feel uncomfortable. There's a lot of foam there, but they are noticeably lighter as well than the ASICS, whilst having a similar feel. I also did a really good tempo session of about 8 or 9 kilometers, where I really kind of stayed in a good tempo zone, and I found them absolutely brilliant for that. I genuinely felt like I was running in a carbon plated shoe, and I'm sure they're not quite as good as that, but it gave me that feel when I sped up. So I couldn't be happier with the Saucony. So all in all, I'm really happy with how both of those shoes feel. They're both good value for money, so you can get them around at the £100 mark. I know they're possibly a little bit more expensive, but if you look around, you should be able to get them for around that price. And I think that in terms of a like for like, I'd say the Azura is as close as you're going to get to a like for like replacement. I might even say it's better. We will see over the long run. It might just be because it's just new, and the other one had 1000k on it, so it could just be that way. It might have lost a bit of its pop, but the Saucony Azura certainly does feel like something that I want to go out in the same way as I did the Superblast. The Puma Velocity, not so much, but I do know that I will be using them, especially for some faster tempo sessions, because I really don't want to use my carbon plated shoes as much. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.